Thanks a lot for giving me your time tonight and inviting me to come along. If you have any questions throughout the talk, feel free to throw up your hand or just yell it out. That's fine too. So Stefan gave a quick overview of who I am. As I said, I went to Systems Design Engineering at Waterloo. It's an interdisciplinary program where you learn a lot of different things, but not too much about one thing. So I decided I needed more formality and went to grad school as well. So that's what I'm currently doing at Waterloo in the area of optics and some automations for optics. So basically I get to work in a cool dark lab with lenses and lasers. Since 2004 I've been part of the Waterloo Space Society, and in 2008 we decided to form the Mars Rover team with a couple of others as well. In 2009 I went to the Mars Desert Research Station. That'll be the first part of the talk today. And in 2010, just this past summer, we competed at the University Rover Challenge in Utah. And we'll get to some reasons why Utah is a good place for these things a little later as well. So the first thing I'd like to say is Mars wants you. And the reason I put this up is that this is my grand vision. This is where I want us to get to as a humanity and as a human race, to the point where we can say, who wants to go to Mars? You know, we have some jobs available, we have positions to be filled on the planet, and you know, we're all working towards the same goal here. So I'm sure you can share my vision. So today, three things we'll talk about once again. But our friend Mars, how well do we really know him or her? So I've got a little quiz to start with. Which one's Mars? So everyone who thinks that Mars is the top picture, number one, raise your hand. And who thinks the bottom one is Mars? Okay, so it actually is the bottom one there. You can tell there's a little bit of liquid water there, so there's not much liquid water on Mars. So the second one, which one's Mars? Who thinks number one is Mars? Who thinks number two? Yeah, that's a trickier one. So the first one is Mars. You can see this is where they were scraping away some of the dirt. You get a little ice underneath. These are actually footprints and a small bush, so you don't have too many bushes on Mars. There's some tricks in these. And finally, which one's Mars? Who thinks number one is Mars? Okay, and who thinks number two is Mars? Yeah. So the trick here is you can actually see some blue sky and snow. The snow doesn't turn out too well, but blue sky is a dead giveaway. The sky's more red on Mars. So the a question there?
Does Mars have striations?
And what are striations? I believe it does. Yeah.
It's sedimentary bed.
Yeah. Again, lots of dust storms, lots of wind on Mars, so it should have the layering as well, I think. So the location where we do some of the Mars simulations is called Hanksville in Utah. We'll zoom in there a little bit. And Hanksville is a very small place. Only 200 people live there. But it is sort of the center of the area. There's not really much else. Hanksville's right in the middle there of two highways, 200 people, 3 hotels, a campground, a grocery store, 3 gas stations, and that's about it, and 1 Mars simulation facility. This is what Utah looks like. So it's very beautiful. It's near the Rocky Mountains. Lots of sort of red, orange colored rock. Nice big hills. Very red soil in some places. And very neat structures. You can see some runoff when they don't get a lot of rain, but when there is rain, they have some interesting features that emerge. And if you go far enough into the desert, about 20 minutes outside of Hanksville, so in the middle of nowhere, and then further out into the middle of nowhere, you get to the Mars Desert Research Station. And this is where I spent 2 weeks of my life in January of 2009. So you see we have a nice big tube module here, and that's actually 2 stories tall, so it's quite a large facility. And there's a small greenhouse beside it, green hab, and in the back there's some generators and little pathways and some ATVs and things that you drive around on. So for an analog site, you guys know probably as much as I do, you have a great little facility there, and I've been happy to have a small tour here to see what you guys are working on. It's great work. You know, there's certain things that you want to have as similar as possible to the environment you're studying. One of those things is that it should look like Mars. So Utah's a great place for that because it's red, it's desolate, you don't really see a lot of people. The second thing is it's got a remote location. Again, it's in the middle of nowhere. The whole time in the 2 weeks we were out there, we only saw a couple of other people. Generally just people doing some ATVing, or actually we had one tourist come up and say, hey, can we see your hab? So in 2 weeks, just living with those 6 people that are sharing the mission with you. You should wear the spacesuits. Sorry, not many people there. You should also wear the spacesuits. And this is important, as you know, to keep it as real as possible. I understand you guys lock yourselves up for a period of time, and that's great. You got to get yourself in the mood, in the mindset. If you walk outside without the spacesuits or without things, then you sort of lose some of that realism and what it would really be like. So we made sure to, anytime we went outside, we would have to go through the decompression process and wear the spacesuits as well. And the best part of it all is that the food was dehydrated. So we actually had, we were part of a NASA food study while we were there, and they arranged for all the food, and we had reasonably authentic food that would survive a trip to Mars. Space bread that was good for a couple of years, dehydrated beef you could just nibble on, Spam, things like that, things that don't really go bad. So I'll take you on a brief tour of the Mars Desert Research Station. As Stefan said, it's been going on for several years from the Mars Society. The Mars Society is probably the biggest organization on the planet pushing to go to Mars. They've got people who are really saying this is the next destination for humanity. And we were the 75th crew that's been out. So generally they're 2-week missions, and you go out to perform different science that you can choose from. You do some of their science, and you just get the experience that you're trying to achieve here as well. You try to figure out what it's like to actually be somewhere distant. The first thing I'll show you are the spacesuits. As you can see, they look reasonably realistic. You've got the helmets, it's almost like a burlap sack that you wear. It's kind of strange. You have boots, gloves, and everything. So they look great. Unfortunately, they're not particularly functional. They are almost a canvas sack that you wear. There are tubes that allow air to be pumped in from the backpacks that you wear. However, sometimes they're working, sometimes they're not. Things break, and so I know I got stuck without a lot of air, and I'd get pretty sweaty inside the helmet there. But more than anything, you get into the mood. You feel like you're really on Mars. This is our kitchen and living room. This is the second floor of that big cylinder. And on the second floor, you see we do have some cooking facilities. We have a gas stove, there's a refrigerator, big table. It became very important for us to gather up. There were 6 of us there. We would gather every night for dinner. Sometimes we'd miss lunches if people were out on some extravehicular activity, jumping around, looking at the different areas. And so it became very important for us to get back inside together for dinner and chat about the day and really build that crew cohesion. One of the most important things I'm sure you've seen is that you build friendships among the crew. They're not going to send people who don't know each other to Mars or any kind of mission like that. You want people who get along, can work well together, and you can definitely see it when you come together for your meal at night. There's a bit of lab space on the main floor. So this is just a small science lab. Nancy there is preparing some samples. While we were there, there was a university actually doing soil studies of Utah, so we could send some soil samples of Utah to her and perform some real science as we simulated the rest of the science. There are 6 bedrooms. Now, the neat thing about Mars Desert Research Station is that they're independent bedrooms. Everyone gets their own bedroom. Now, they're arranged very strangely, though. They're in L shapes. So this bedroom looks like this. Really, you get an entranceway, a bunk bed on top here, and a couple of shelves with a small desk if you had to do some work. However, underneath you here is someone else in here. So they fit together like this, all the rooms. They're different L shapes. So it's a really efficient use of the space. And it allows you to fit a full 6 bedrooms in for the whole crew. And you find you do want a bit of privacy. It's nice to not have to sleep near someone else when you're spending a full 2 weeks with your group. It's nice to have a space where you can go take a nap if you need to, that kind of thing. And delicious food. So again, this is actually, believe it or not, beef, just dehydrated beef that you didn't even have to cook. You just put water in, you could heat it up if you wanted to. I think this is Spam or some kind of corned beef. And this is the standard food that you bring on your longer missions, just a sandwich. Now, truth be told, our spacesuits, you could lift up the helmets and you could eat some food if you needed to, if you were going for a hike that lasted a little longer than you could go without some food or water. But bread, again, could last for a couple of years, I think, and made a pretty good sandwich. You also see, I'm sure you're not addicted yet, but you will be addicted to coffee at some point, I'm sure of it. So that ends the first part of the talk about the Mars Desert Research Station and leads into the second part. So the University Rover Challenge was actually held at the same facility. I visited twice, a year apart. So are there any questions about the research station before we move on? Here and then here.
How was it built? Like, how long have they been using it?
It's been built for perhaps 10 years, I think.
Okay.
Somewhere on that order. I don't know the exact date. And they actually have another facility in the Arctic, the Flashlight Mars Arctic Research Station.
It looks kind of like some presentation I saw in grade 9 at a different school, so I'm like, hey, it's the same thing.
Yeah,
Like
well,
the
it
one
could have
in
been.
Devon,
It's on Devonon, yes, yes. And that one is a little newer, and they also operate that one for longer timescales because it's harder to get out there. They do month-long missions or 2-month-long missions for that.
I heard about 2 month.
Yeah.
Has it ever rained while the mission is happening?
Yeah, so actually we got rain the last night we were there. The person that was bagging the little samples there was planning to do some dust studies to look at the dust. She's doing fluid dynamics as her PhD degree. And so she was hoping for wind the whole time and didn't get any wind. She would leave her little cups out to collect the dust that was coming in. And then the last night we got a bit of a thunderstorm and a bit of rain. Last year before the University Rover Challenge they got a bit of rain as well. And they were worried that the rovers might have difficulty facing a bit of damp soil. Turns out it wasn't a huge problem because it is so hot it dries out pretty quick. While we were there, there's a bit of frost that appears, a bit of snow, but for the most part it's pretty dry. And over here.
Do you, during the mission, accomplish scientific research relating to Mars, or does it exist primarily to as a public representation thing for the Mars Society?
So there's a little bit of research, not so much on the Mars side. You do research that would relate to Utah itself, the soil and composition, that kind of thing. But some of the knowledge that you would gain would be applicable on Mars. My primary goal while I was there was to look at the capabilities of rovers in that type of environment. So I brought along a small remote control car and was testing the traction and what type of obstacles it could go over. So that knowledge, whether it's here on Earth or on Mars, you'd get a sense for how these things can handle certain hills and certain features. Yep.
How did you simulate reduced, or how, if you did, how did you simulate reduced gravity?
We didn't try to simulate reduced gravity. Unfortunately, with every good simulation, there are some limitations, and that's one that you can't really get around. Yeah. Thank you.
Do you ever thought to eat spirulina? Since I've heard that many agencies are thinking of that as the major food source for space missions.
Ready to eat which?
Spirulina.
Algae.
Algae? Oh, okay. It didn't come up while we were out there. It's an interesting topic. I guess it's easier to grow than a lot of other foods.
That's why. And
Yeah.
it's nutritious.
Yeah.
Yeah, just going back to the beginning of your speech, curious, did you build your laser pointer?
This one?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Okay.
This is the old days of deals.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I'll continue on. You can always ask questions at the end as well.